This is News Talk 980 CKNW.
As you probably heard yesterday, the Keystone Pipeline got the partial green light from the brand new President Trump. The president has requested that TransCanada reapply to build the pipeline, but with a major condition is that U.S. steel be used for the portion of the build in America, Linda.
Yes, but that was not all from the new president. Letters also sent to both Canada and Mexico demanding to reopen Nafta, and now the speculation has started about what changes the new administration wants. With more on this, we're joined by Michael Campbell, host of Canada's top-rated financial show. And Mike, before we get to Keystone XL, I have to ask about hitting 20,000 on the Dow.
Yeah, that's a big number. That's the psychological mark that, everybody in the investment industry has been watching for a while. Really, it's since Mr. Trump was elected on November 9th. It was the biggest rally coming into the end of the year since 1952 when Dwight Eisenhower won the election. And then it stalled for a while, but now we've had this latest up push there, over 20 grand. I mean, as I say, that's when the cork started popping and the champagne flowing. And obviously, it's part of a huge momentum trade that you still got a lot of people saying, when's this one going to end?
Yeah.
Let's go to Keystone then. There's a big debate on how many jobs it will create. So, number of jobs in Canada, I'm hearing 35 south of the border. What do you know?
Well, I mean, first of all, we got to be careful with the whole term creating jobs, because are we thinking about new jobs or just the number of people who are going to work on that project? Because let's say, for instance, I was already working on another project, or I could have worked on another project, and I come and instead build the pipeline. Yeah, the pipeline's got a job, but it's not really net employment growth. So I think that's got to be taken into account. But the number of people working on that, you're right, have been all over the map. I mean, is it 28,000? That's what Mr. Trump used in his announcement. I've seen even higher. Are we talking just construction or the spin-off jobs? All of that starts coming into play. So I'm going to the State Department's number, and they estimated that down in the States, for example, there'd be about 10,400 people getting part-time work, on the construction side of it. Then you'd also get the spin-off jobs, which are created in, industries that are related to the new pipeline. It could be refining, for example, or manufacturing, petroleum transportation, that kind of stuff. Well, they estimate that another chunk of jobs comes on, and so their numbers are much more like 16,000 to 20,000. And number in Canada, by the way, when you look at construction jobs, that I'm sort of looking at is about 4,500 construction jobs. But again, those aren't full-time jobs. It'll be, whatever number of weeks or months that people are working on that.
So what about President Trump's demand that American steel be used in construction in the States?
Yeah, that's obviously a theme we've been hearing, America first, and we'll really have to see how that plays out. Because if he's talking about 100% of the steel or 75% of the steel, or is it 50%, because absolutely the majority of the steel will be accessed out of the U.S. and accessed out of Canada. I think in the U.S. portion it's something like 660,000 tons of steel are going to be used. But already they're looking at 54% of that getting produced out of Arkansas, 24% out of Saskatchewan. Then they go offshore to Italy and India for another total of 26%. But I'm not sure how realistic it is to say 100% of the steel used there. But if it is, that will certainly slow things down and may provide a terrible impasse here. So I think there's still some negotiations to be made on that particular caveat.
All right, let's talk about Nafta here. It's clear that these renegotiations are going to take place. Do you think we're in for big changes? Because it's been like this since the 90s, but he wants to renegotiate this whole thing with us and Mexico. How do you see this sort of unfolding?
Well, I think it's fair to say that Mexico was the main target here. He wasn't seeing a lot of manufacturing, especially in auto, for example, moving to Canada. We already had an established industry, fully integrated with the States. And I think the other number to keep in mind all the time is that Canada's the number one trading partner of 35 American states. So, it's going to be tough to make big changes there. But, yeah, he definitely wants to do it. And the industry, though, that we may be looking at, it's just come up over in the last week or so, is what are they talking about? It may be our, supply management system for poultry and eggs and dairy and cheese, those kinds of things. That may come under negotiation. Softwood lumber may be part of this in the end. They have a separate softwood lumber deal, but that may be brought in. But Canada still doesn't seem to be the main target of this. We have a very important relationship, but they have one with us. That's the thing to remember. I don't think he wants to hurt American businesses, and that certainly would, if there was something more dramatic take place here. It would hurt a lot of businesses in the very states he's promising jobs. So, but it's just so complicated. That's the other thing. It's one thing to be saying, hey, let's renegotiate this and let's make changes. It's quite another thing to do it in practice. And it kind of reminds me a bit of when Quebec wants to separate, and they think, it's just not that easy. There's just so much integration to talk about and so many agreements and, legal things to talk about. It's the same with this. So I'm still optimistic that not much changes because of our close relationship and how many American states benefit from their dealing with Canada. But that doesn't mean every industry escapes on this one. There may be a serious renegotiation on a couple of the industries I mentioned.
Well, it's going to be interesting times ahead for sure. And in many ways, Donald Trump is doing what he said he was going to do. And in other ways, he's completely unpredictable. So I guess it'll be fun to go along for the ride because we have no choice anyway.
It's almost daily. You have to watch and see what's going on. I think you're right on both of those counts. There's some level of unpredictability, but at the same time, he certainly seems to be very serious about the kinds of things he said during the campaign. He's not backing away from them, but the real thing, the unpredictable part, is how does that play out in the details? And we'll be here to talk about it.
What an interesting 4 years we're in for. Thanks a lot, Michael.
My pleasure.
Vancouver's News, Vancouver's Talk. This is News Talk 980, CKNW.